Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are diving into a story that has absolutely set the tennis world on fire, a narrative that exposes the complex, often contradictory nature of modern sports fame, attendance, and international passion. If you've been following the Women's Tennis Association tour lately, you know that the European indoor swing is usually a place of quiet, polite applause, a subdued atmosphere where the echoes of balls striking the racket bounce off half-empty stadium seats. But what just transpired in Austria has completely shattered that stereotype, and has reportedly left one of the biggest names in the sport, Aryna Sabalenka, absolutely furious. Imagine the scene. You are in Linz, Austria. It is a prestigious but historically modest tournament. You expect local fans sipping coffee, respectfully clapping for good winners, and maintaining the stoic, traditional etiquette of European tennis. Instead, what you get is a wall of sound. You get drums, you get chants, you get a sea of flags, and you get an atmosphere that rivals a heavyweight boxing match in Las Vegas or a championship basketball game in Manila. Tens of thousands of Filipino fans, both local European expats, and those who literally crossed oceans, flooded the gates. They were not there for the world number one. They were not there for the established multi-slam champions. They were there for Alexandra Ila. Alex Ila, the rising Filipino prodigy out of the Rafa Nadal Academy, has just single-handedly redefined what a tennis crowd looks like in 2026. The footage circulating online is nothing short of breathtaking. The moment she stepped onto court, the arena erupted. When she hit a winner, the sound was deafening. It was a cultural takeover, a beautiful, overwhelming display of national pride that completely hijacked the Austrian tournament. But while the internet is celebrating this incredible injection of life into the WTA, behind the scenes, a completely different emotion is reportedly boiling over. Aryna Sabalenka, the reigning queen of hard courts, a multiple-time Grand Slam champion, and one of the most fearsome competitors the sport has ever seen, is allegedly livid. And to understand why, you have to look at the stark, almost insulting contrast taking place right next door. While Ila, a player still fighting to cement her place at the absolute pinnacle of the rankings, was playing in front of a jam-packed, standing-room-only crowd that was hanging on to her every single breath, Sabalenka was stepping onto her own courts to face sections of empty plastic chairs. Sabalenka goes off after Filipino fans pack Austria, while she still cannot fill her own courts. That is the headline dominating the conversation today, and it is a headline that forces us to ask some very uncomfortable questions about the state of tennis. How does a two-time, three-time Grand Slam champion, a woman who bleeds for the sport, hits the ball harder than anyone else on tour, and brings pure box office entertainment, find herself playing to scattered applause, while a rising star from Southeast Asia turns a random Tuesday in Austria into a national holiday? This is not just a story about jealousy or locker room frustration. This is a massive wake-up call for the business of tennis. It highlights a massive disparity between ranking and cultural relevance. Sabalenka's reported meltdown is a culmination of years of frustration felt by top-tier players who travel the globe, carrying the marketing weight of the tour on their shoulders, only to realize that true, unconditional, stadium-shaking loyalty cannot be bought with trophies. It has to be earned through cultural connection. Today, we are going to break down exactly what happened in Austria. We will look at the astonishing rise of Alex Ila and the unstoppable force that is a Filipino sports fan. We will analyze Aryna Sabalenka's completely valid frustrations and what this incident reveals about the WTA's ongoing struggle with attendance and marketability. Because what happened in Linz was not just a tournament. It was a revolution. And the fallout from this week is going to change how the tennis world looks at star power forever. Stick around, because we are going deep into the heart of the drama. To truly grasp the magnitude of what just happened in Austria, we first need to unpack the phenomenon of Filipino sports fandom. If you are new to the dynamics of global sports, here's a golden rule. If a Filipino athlete is competing on a world stage, the entire nation of over 100 million people, plus a massive, highly mobilized global diaspora, will stop whatever they are doing to support them. We have seen this historically in boxing with the legendary Manny Pacquiao, where the streets of Manila would literally empty out on fight day. We see it in basketball, where the passion for the sport borders on a religious experience. And now, we are seeing it in tennis, a sport that has historically been dominated by Europe and the Americas. Alex Ila is not just a tennis player to the Philippines. She is a beacon of hope. She represents breaking into a historically elite country club sport and doing it with grit, grace, and an unstoppable work ethic honed at the Rafa Nadal Academy. When Ila took the courts in Linz, facing off against tough opponents like Julia Grabher and Yelena Ostapenko, she wasn't just playing for ranking points. She was carrying the flag, and the Filipino diaspora in Europe showed up in terrifyingly beautiful numbers. We are talking about thousands of fans descending upon a tournament that usually sees a fraction of that attendance in its early rounds. They brought the noise, the color, and the energy that tennis desperately needs. But let us pivot to the other side of this coin, to Aryna Sabalenka. To call Sabalenka a superstar is an understatement. She is a titan of the sport. She has conquered Melbourne Park multiple times. She has the kind of raw power and emotional intensity that makes for incredible television. She is a player who wears her heart on her sleeve, roaring after big points and openly weeping after devastating losses. She gives everything to the sport of tennis. So, imagine you are Aryna Sabalenka. You have put in the grueling hours. You have hoisted the biggest trophies in the world. You have done the media rounds, the photo shoots, the press conferences. You are told you are the face of the tour. Yet, when you show up to a standard tour event, you are greeted by a smattering of polite applause in a stadium that is maybe 40% full. You look over at an outside court or a different session, and you hear a roar so loud you think a building is collapsing. You find out it is for a player ranked well below you, a player who hasn't won the majors you have. Is it any wonder she reportedly lost it? The frustration is entirely human and incredibly telling. Sabalenka's reported anger is not necessarily directed at Alex Ila personally. It is directed at the system, the promoters, and the stark reality of sports marketing. It is the realization that in 2026, being the best player in the world does not automatically make you the most watched player in the world. This brings us to a massive, systemic issue within the Women's Tennis Association and tennis as a whole, the attendance crisis outside of the Grand Slams. For years now, the tour has struggled to pack arenas for regular, week-to-week events. We saw the disastrous optics at the WTA Finals in Cancun a few years ago, where the top 8 women in the world played in front of shockingly empty stands. We have seen tournaments in the Middle East and parts of Europe struggle to draw local crowds unless a generational icon like Serena Williams or Maria Sharapova was on the ticket. The sport has been searching desperately for the next big draw. They have tried marketing rivalries. They have tried Netflix documentaries like Breakpoint, and they have tried pushing the glamour and the drama. But what the WTA organizers in Austria just learned is that you cannot manufacture the kind of organic, blood-deep loyalty that a specific demographic has for its homegrown heroes. Sabalenka represents a traditional tennis superstar, dominant, European, highly ranked. Ila represents the untapped, explosive potential of new markets. The Filipino fans packing the Austrian stadium didn't care about the WTA point system. They didn't care about the history of the Linz tournament. They cared that their girl was on the court. This creates a fascinating psychological dynamic in the locker room. Tennis is an intensely isolating sport. It is just you out there. The crowd can be a weapon, a source of energy that can lift a player out of a slump or crush their spirit. When a top player like Sabalenka plays to an empty room, she has to generate all her own fire. But when a player like Ila steps out, she is surfing on a wave of pure adrenaline provided by thousands of screaming supporters. It alters the competitive landscape. If you watched the match against Ostapenko, you saw the Latvian star visibly rattled by the crowd. Ostapenko, known for a fiery temper, was showing her anger toward the fans, completely thrown off by an environment she wasn't prepared for. Sabalenka, watching this unfold, has to be thinking, what more do I have to do? I am winning the Grand Slams. I am hitting the fastest serves. Why isn't there a line out the door for me? The harsh truth is that tennis is a localized sport on a global stage. Sabalenka is Belarusian. In the current geopolitical climate and with the specific demographics of the tennis fan base, she does not have a traveling army of fans. She relies on the general tennis purist to buy a ticket to see her. And the general tennis purist is aging, and they often only tune in for the 4 majors. Alex Ila, on the other hand, taps into a completely different vein. The Philippines is a country deeply connected by social media. When Ila plays, highlights are instantly shared millions of times across Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Brands are noticing. There are reports of massive, record-breaking endorsement deals floating around Ila, numbers that rival established top 10 players. Gucci, global sports brands, they all see the engagement. This shift is terrifying for the old guard. It means the paradigm is shifting. Trophies alone no longer guarantee you the spotlight or the biggest paycheck. Engagement does. Cultural impact does. And right now, no one is making a bigger cultural impact on a standard WTA Tuesday than Alex Ila and her army of fans. What Sabalenka's reaction highlights is the growing pains of a sport in transition. She is caught in the middle. She is doing everything right according to the old rulebook of tennis. When matches secure the ranking, become the star. But the new rulebook, written by the internet and globalized fan bases, says that a passionate, centralized demographic can outshout and outview the traditional fan any day of the week. Furthermore, let us consider the pressure this puts on the tournament organizers. The Linz Open just had the best marketing gift they could possibly ask for dropped right into their laps. They had viral moments. They had packed stands. They had international coverage from news outlets and YouTube channels that normally wouldn't give a WTA 500 event a second glance. But they also have a disgruntled top seed. How do you balance that? Do you put the wild card or lower-ranked player on the center court because she brings the crowd, effectively sliding your number one seed? Or do you put your top seed on the main court to play to an empty room, while thousands of fans are crammed around an outside court trying to catch a glimpse of the rising star? It is a logistical and public relations nightmare, and it is exactly what caused a friction in Austria. Sabalenka is a proud champion, to be upstaged not by another player's tennis, but by their sheer popularity, is a completely different kind of defeat. It is a defeat of the ego. We must also talk about the respect factor. Sabalenka has spoken out before about wanting respect from the crowds, wanting to feel the love after she puts on a spectacular performance. When she sees protocols seemingly broken, when she sees a host country rolling out the red carpet for a visiting player simply because of the ticket sales, it stings. It feeds into a narrative that women's tennis is still struggling to sell its premium product and is instead relying on novelty or specific nationalistic surges to make ends meet. But perhaps Sabalenka and the rest of the top tier need to look at this not as an insult, but as an opportunity. The Filipino fans in Austria prove that there is a massive appetite for live tennis if you give the right people a reason to care. The challenge for the WTA, and for players like Sabalenka, is how to convert that energy. How do you make a fan who came for Alex Ila's stay for Aryna Sabalenka? Right now, the divide is stark. Sabalenka's frustration is the sound of the old establishment clashing with the new reality of digital and demographic power. The courts in Austria may have been half empty for the world's best, but they were overflowing for the world's favorite. And in the modern era of sports, being the favorite might just be the most valuable title of all that. So, where do we go from here? The dust is settling in Austria, but the echoes of those drums and the chants in the Filipino fans are going to be ringing in the ears of the WTA executives for a very long time. The Aryna Sabalenka incident is not just a flash in the pan. It is a symptom of a much larger shift occurring right before our eyes in 2026. For Aryna Sabalenka, this has to be a moment of reflection. Her anger is justified. Any elite professional who has dedicated their life to becoming the absolute best in their field expects a certain level of reception and respect. To feel like an afterthought at a tournament you are headlining is a bitter pill to swallow. But channeling that frustration will be key. Sabalenka is at her best when she has something to prove, when she plays with that chip on her shoulder. If she uses this feeling of being underappreciated to fuel her fire for the upcoming clay season and the French Open, we might see an even more devastating, ruthless version of her on the court. She cannot control who the fans buy tickets for, but she can control the ferocity which she dominates the draw. She can make herself undeniable. For Alex Ila, the pressure has just been dialed up to an unimaginable level. She is no longer just a promising prospect. She is a certified global draw. With that kind of massive, unconditional support comes an incredibly heavy burden of expectation. Every time she steps onto the court now, she isn't just playing a tennis match. she is hosting an event. The scrutiny on her game, her development, and her ability to handle the top-tier players will be intense. The fans have proven they will show up, but now Ila has to prove she can consistently go toe-to-toe with the Sabalenkas, the Swiateks, and the Goffs of the world. Her trajectory is the most exciting storyline in tennis right now, and how she manages this newfound megastardom will define the next decade of her career. For the Women's Tennis Association, the events in Austria provide a clear, undeniable blueprint for the future. You cannot rely solely on the tradition of the sport to sell tickets anymore. You have to aggressively lean into the cultural narratives. The tour must embrace regional superstars and find ways to integrate their specific fan cultures into the broader fabric of the tournaments. If thousands of Filipino fans want to bring drums and turn a tennis match into a festival, let them. Encourage it. Tennis has been notoriously stubborn about its quiet, reserved etiquette. Maybe it is time to let the sport get a little louder. Maybe it is time to realize that a loud, passionate crowd, even if they are cheering against the establishment, is infinitely better for the sport than an empty, silent arena. This situation also opens up a massive conversation about scheduling and venue choices. If certain demographics are proving they will pack stadiums, shouldn't the tour look at expanding more heavily into Southeast Asia? If Alex Ila can sell out an arena in Austria, imagine what she could do in Manila. The global footprint of tennis needs to adapt to where the actual, ticket-buying, hyper-engaged fans are located. Ultimately, what we witnessed this week was a beautiful collision of talent, passion, and the brutal realities of sports business. Sabalenka's empty seats and Ila's packed houses are two sides of the exact same coin. They tell the story of a sport that is incredibly top-heavy in talent, but searching for a broader, more deeply connected audience. I want to know what you guys think about all of this. Is Aryna Sabalenka right to be frustrated by the lack of attendance at her matches, despite her incredible achievements? Or does she just need to accept that fan loyalty is often tied to nationality and culture rather than just pure ranking? And how far do you think Alex Ila can ride this incredible wave of support? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below, because this is a debate that is going to be raging on for the rest of the season. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the business, the psychology, and the raw drama of professional tennis, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. Make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell turned on, so you never miss an update as we track all the biggest stories, controversies, and triumphs across the sports world. Thank you so much for tuning in, for your time, and for your passion for the game. I will see you all in the next video.